big news is the defending champs are struggling. I'm Mike Sherman, and this is the NBA and OKC with Mike Baldwin. Mike, the Boston Celtics are struggling. They went into the Christmas Day game riding high. They lose to the Lakers, and something's happened since. They've lost 3 out of 4. They lost to the Knicks on Sunday for the first time in like 4 years. What's going on in Boston?
Well, I mean, everybody said this veteran team's got a chance to be 70 wins, be like the Bulls did, and they were playing that well there for a while. But they still weren't playing as well as Cleveland, that was winning by double digits almost every game. So I always thought there's an outside chance this would happen. But nobody expected, 4 losses in about a 10-day span. All of a sudden, they're just going to be having a big old battle just for the number 1 seed with Cleveland and Orlando in the East now. And they're just a little beat up. I mean, Pierce and Garnett, of all people, are not playing as well. Rondo's the one still playing pretty well. It's the big three that are just swooned a little bit. And we were talking with Scott Brooks in practice the other day about Russell Westbrook hitting the rookie. Well, he says all veterans hit it. And he says, I don't care who you are, there's a point in the season your body's not working well, you're mentally not as sharp. I think that's what the Celtics are going through right now, is once they got that Christmas Day game, they had a tough loss against the big high-profile Lakers, a rematch of last year's finals. I think mentally they just took a little bit of a dip. I expect them to bounce back and still have a shot at the number 1 seed. But they're showing they're not invincible. They may win the title again, but there's going to be people taking good shots at them.
Applicable to Oklahoma City, the Knicks are in town Tuesday night to face the Thunder. They beat the Celtics. Here's how they beat them. Wilson Chandler taking the ball right to Kevin Garnett, who hurt his heel, spent some time on the bench, but didn't look like the KG that says anything is possible after winning an NBA title. Number 2, Jared Jeffries, big 6'11" center. OU fans will remember him from that Indiana team that took the Sooners out in 2002 of the Final Four. They put him on Rajon Rondo. So there's this big 6'11" guy chasing the Celtics point guard around. Wonder if that could be an interesting matchup tonight between the Knicks and the Thunder with Russell Westbrook. But the Knicks look different. Coming back to a point that you made, though, the Celtics no longer invincible, and you like the Orlando Magic to come up and maybe challenge the Celtics and the Cavs for that number 1 seed in the East.
I really think Cleveland is the best team. They've just consistently won by double digits game after game after game. They've had a few losses themselves. I mean, we have the famous crab walk, was it called, traveling call on LeBron and some of those issues. But Orlando's the team that I think people sleeping on. We saw with Dwight Howard and all the other pieces. Now, they got Petrus hurt recently. That's going to hurt them a little bit. How do they survive that? But their record is right there. And home and road, they're playing well. I think they probably will be the number 3 seed. They're still dangerous in the playoffs, but it's not impossible for them to come up and get the number 1 seed with the Celtics coming back to the pack.
Okay, let's talk about the Thunder's upcoming schedule. Again, Tuesday night at the Ford Center against the Knicks. You're going to be in Minneapolis on Wednesday night against the Timberwolves, a team the Thunder's seen twice already. What's the story in Minneapolis?
Well, they were struggling so bad. They were 0-8 under Kevin McHale. He had to fire his coach. This isn't working. Whitman, you're out of here. I mean, they were 0-8 under him. But now in the last week or so, they've been playing a lot better. They've now doubled their win total up to 8 because they were sitting on that number 4 number there for a while, just like the Thunder was. But now they're starting to play better basketball. I don't know if the Thunder caught them at the wrong time. It's not like they're rolling through a lot of good teams getting these wins like the Knicks win over the Celtics, but they are getting wins against teams like the Thunder, and this is a home game for them. And so, I mean, they've had 2 good games with them. I expect another one, but they're playing a lot better than they were a week ago.
Friday night at home, back at the Ford Center against the Houston Rockets, a team that has the threesome, Tracy McGrady, Yao Ming, and Ron Artest, but really hasn't had them together for long stretches of this season.
They're the Jekyll and Hyde team. About the time you think, oh, yeah, they're going to be a contender in the West, they'll go out and just have a clunker after clunker. Somebody sits down on the bench that's a little bit hurt, and then they come back healthy. Right now, the Rockets are the team. I just don't see them coming together and finishing strong and being a factor in the West like everybody thought they were going to be. But about the time I write them off, you watch, they'll have a 2 or 3 game winning streak. They'll go out and beat somebody good. But that's their biggest problem right now. They don't have a quality win over the Celtics, the Cavs, or the Lakers. Every time they've gone up against one of the 3 favorites, they've lost every time. And so until they prove it against the big boys, I think they're a little bit in trouble. And they're even starting to fall in the standings a little bit. This may be a good time to catch the Rockets, even though their talent is awful good.
Okay, and then on Saturday night, go to Chicago United Airlines Center, and they're going to play the Chicago Bulls, who had everybody's pick for Rookie of the Year. How's it going in Chicago under new coach Vinny Del Negro?
Well, I mean, Derrick Rose is still one of the favorites. He's not. I mean, him and May are the two guys that everybody says is probably one of those two guys. Beasley's out of the race. Some other guys are out of the race. We're going to have a column Sunday about the halfway point, who to look for in Coach of the Year, Rookie of the Year, and some of those kind of issues. But they're very good at home. That's where the Thunder's catching them in home, and that's why they're in the playoff race, and they haven't been very good on the road. That's typical of a young team with Derrick Rose. But what if Kirk Heinrich comes back here in a few weeks? Ben Gordon's finally starting to get going a little bit, learning his role with Derrick Rose. I like this team's future more next year than this year, and they're good at home. They may and may not get in the playoffs, but the Bulls, I think, are building something solid. Part of it is when you got the Rookie of the Year in your backyard, as the Thunder people found with Durant, there's definitely hope for the future.
Okay. Big news in Denver. Carmelo Anthony comes into the Ford Center last Friday, breaks the Thunder's heart with a last-second dagger. The fourth time this year the Thunder's lost on a last-second shot. Lo and behold, he's got a broken bone. What's the latest on Carmelo?
Broken hand. They don't really know yet. They're going to have to take x-rays. Sometimes these things can be as little as 1 or 2 weeks, but sometimes, I mean, Heinrich broke his thumb, and he's been out 4 months. And, I mean, you've had other players that, and remember Earl Watson here in our own backyard, he says he's just now starting to feel better from an injury he had way back in the summer. It's too early to know because it happened late Monday night. But if it's a serious injury, the Denver Nuggets, for all the reasons they surprised people after the Billups trade, I mean, they jumped up there leading the division, one of the top contenders. Somebody's going to be left out, whether it's Utah, Dallas, Phoenix, or Denver. If he's out too long, they could be the team to drop all the way down to number 9. It'll be interesting to follow him the rest of the way.
They win their division, though, they're in, and they have a weak division. I mean, that's the thing. With Utah struggling, as you wrote about in Sunday's paper.
But what if Utah passes them and they don't get in?
That's true. I mean, Utah could regroup, but right now Utah's without Carlos Boozer for a very long time.
But Millsap's playing well while he's gone. I like the way at least Utah's hung in there, because a lot of teams, if they had those same injuries, they would be way under 500, way out of the race. They're at least 4 or 5 games above 500 hanging around, and then maybe an injury like Carmelo to drop them down below. And there's some interesting things in this division, which, oh, by the way, that's the division this team is in. So that's why fans sometimes need to remember, we always talk in baseball or even the NFL sometimes, it's a weak division like the Broncos and Chargers were this year. I don't think these teams will be weak forever, Utah, but they've got some decisions to make on Boozer. Denver's got some tough decisions to make. These are the kind of teams people need to watch in the future, because if the Thunder does get pretty decent in a year or two, these are the kind of teams, if you win the division you're in, those are the teams they're going to be competing against night in, night out.
Speaking of that division, the Thunder will play Utah their next home game after this week. The Utah Jazz and Jerry Sloan, who Mike will be writing about coming up, are coming to the Ford Center. You'll get to take a measurement of how the Thunder matches up against another one of those division foes. Listen, that's all for the NBA and OKC. Be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere, every day in the Oklahoman and every hour at newsok.com.